They thought Earth was bluffing. For centuries, the empires of the galaxy had played their games of dominance, carving up star systems, trading colonies like currency, and crushing worlds that dared resist. Earth was a latecomer, a blue marble on the fringe, rich in defiance, but poor in reputation. To the galaxy, humans were an annoyance, unruly, stubborn, and far too aggressive for their small reach. The first fleet was dispatched to test Earth's resolve. It was small, a probe of strength more than a war effort. It never returned. The second came armed with more ships, confident that the first's failure was a mistake. They too vanished. No signal, no distress call, just silence. By the time the fourth and fifth fleets had disappeared, whispers spread through the halls of the Galactic Council. Something was wrong. Earth was no pushover, and yet arrogance is a disease older than stars. The empires convinced themselves that Earth had burned everything defending its skies, that the humans had bled themselves dry, repelling each wave. The Eighth Fleet, larger than any before, crossed into Sol's domain. What came back? Nothing, but fragments of corrupted transmissions, screams, static, and the faint outline of ships tearing apart in impossible ways. And still. They sent the Ninth. Earth gave its final ultimatum before the Ninth Fleet crossed the edge of human space. A transmission broadcast across every known channel, every wavelength, every tongue. This is Earth. You have tested our patience. You have taken our silence for weakness. This is the final time we speak. Do not come. If you cross into Sol again, you will not return. No warnings, no negotiations. This is your last chance. The Galactic Council laughed. In their marble halls and golden thrones, they smirked at the audacity of the so-called Terrans. Small, fragile humans who had barely stepped into the stars thought they could dictate terms to civilizations older than their sun. The ultimatum was dismissed as bravado, a desperate bluff of cornered prey. So the Ninth Fleet set course for Earth. It was magnificent. Over 2,000 warships, dreadnoughts that could level continents, carriers swollen with starfighters, cruisers bristling with cannons. Entire species contributed to this armada, unified in purpose. They were not just coming to conquer Earth. They were coming to make an example of it. The fleet moved as a tide, darkening the stars behind them, weapons powered, shields raised, commanders certain of their triumph. And then they crossed the boundary. The Sol system lay quiet. No Terran ships met them. No defenses flared to life. Earth hung there in the black, blue, and green and fragile. The commanders laughed at how vulnerable it looked. They advanced. That was when the first ship disappeared. No explosion, no battle. One moment, the dreadnought Calrix Eternal was there, its shields humming, its engines blazing, and the next, nothing. Gone from every scanner, every eye. The fleet tightened formation. Then another ship vanished, and another. Panic rippled. Captains barked orders, crews scrambled, sensors spun desperately to locate what was happening. Then came the light. From the void itself, Terran warships emerged, sleek, angular, cloaked in technology the galaxy had never seen. They did not match the size of the dreadnoughts, but their weapons struck with precision, ripping holes through shields as if they were paper. The Ninth Fleet returned fire, a storm of plasma, railgun slugs, and energy beams. Yet the Terran ships moved like shadows, weaving through the onslaught, firing back with weapons that bent physics to their will. One by one, the armada began to crumble. But Earth's true weapon was not its fleet. Hidden in the darkness of the Kuiper Belt, waiting in silence for years, Terran constructs awoke. Colossal platforms, planetary-scale cannons, machines forged in secret while the galaxy mocked Earth's weakness. They fired once, only once, and entire squadrons evaporated in the storm. The commanders of the Ninth Fleet realized too late that Earth had not been struggling to survive. Earth had been preparing. Every fleet they had sent before had only sharpened humanity's resolve, hardened its defenses, perfected its weapons. Each fleet was not a victory for the empires, but a gift of time to the humans who learned, adapted, and built in silence. Now the silence was over. The Ninth Fleet broke. Ships scattered in desperation, commanders shouting for retreat. But the void had become a cage. Terran ships hunted them like wolves through the black, precise, merciless. Every escape route collapsed. Within hours, the largest armada ever assembled vanished into the abyss. Not a single ship survived to tell the tale. And Earth? Earth said nothing. No triumphant broadcast, no declaration of dominance, only silence. But silence in that moment was louder than any war cry. Across the galaxy, empires whispered in dread. The Ninth Fleet, the pride of the Council, was gone. An ultimatum ignored. An empire's arrogance shattered. The lesson was clear. Earth did not bluff. From that day forward, no fleet was ever sent to Sol again. Borders that once pressed against Terran space suddenly pulled back. Treaties were signed, without Earth asking. Ambassadors who once sneered now bowed. Because the galaxy finally understood, the humans were not weak. They were not prey. They were patient, and patience had run out. They called it arrogance. Historians, centuries later, would call it madness. For in the heart of the galaxy, when Earth issued its final ultimatum, do not come. Cross our skies again, and you will not return. The Council of Empires laughed. They had laughed 8 times before, each laugh quieter, each fleet larger, each silence more terrifying, and still, they believed Earth's threats were nothing more than desperate bark from a cornered predator. The Ninth Fleet was assembled. It was not a strike force, nor a deterrent. It was a hammer, forged by dozens of empires, a leviathan of steel, and fire meant to erase Earth from the stars. 2,000 warships, tens of thousands of fighters, the finest admirals, the deadliest weapons. No world had ever faced such force and endured. The fleet departed under banners of triumph. Crowds across the empires cheered, and then, like those before it, the Ninth Fleet vanished into Sol. Not one ship returned. At first, the Council was smug. They thought Earth, in desperation, had unleashed all its defenses, burned every secret, spent every weapon, bled every last drop of ingenuity to stop the Ninth. Surely humanity's arsenal was exhausted, but weeks passed. No fragments, no distress. Signals, no debris fields were found. Even the most advanced long-range scanners detected nothing. It was as if the Ninth Fleet had been swallowed whole. Whispers began to circulate. Rumors slipped from soldier to citizen, from council hall to marketplace. Stories spread of strange signals on the edge of known space, garbled voices speaking in tones not their own. Fragments of comms intercepted that bore the unmistakable encryption of council warships. And then, one night, an outpost in the Orion Spur reported seeing them. The Ninth Fleet. The commander of the outpost, Admiral Calrax, was a veteran of 3 wars. His log described it in words trembling with disbelief. They came out of the void, not hyperspace, not warp. They emerged, hulls gleaming, weapons hot, engines burning like ghosts of fire. At first I rejoiced. Our brothers had returned. But then I saw their signals, not the proud banners of the council, not the familiar codes. Their transponders read, Terran. The Ghost Fleet had been taken. The council tried to hide it. They silenced reports, erased logs, executed those who spoke too freely. But the galaxy is wide, and fear spreads faster than fire. Soon, sightings grew too frequent to deny. entire squadrons of council vessels, painted in Terran black, moving, as if alive, striking where they pleased. They did not destroy. They harvested. Outposts went dark, but their ships did not vanish. They reappeared months later, flying under Terran command. Battleships once belonging to the proud Vera Dominion now fought beside human warships. Frigates of the Thalix Republic now bore Earth's banner. It was more than conquest. It was assimilation. Speculation ran wild. How had Earth done it? Some said the humans had mastered a technology of mind-binding, ripping loyalty from crews and turning them into slaves. Others swore Earth had built machines that hollowed out ships, replacing their crews with cold, thinking steel. The most chilling rumor, whispered in corners where no counselors listened, was that the humans had bargained with something older, something buried in the dark beyond their solar system, a power that had given them dominion over the very wills of those who came against them. Whatever the truth, the result was undeniable. The Ninth Fleet was not gone. It was reborn, and now it served Earth. The first true test came when the Empire of Sol turned its fleets toward Terra. Confident as always, they sent their ships to strike before Earth could wield its ghostly prize. They expected a desperate defense. What they met was their own reflection. The Ghost Fleet arrived, thousands strong, bearing weapons they themselves had built, tactics they themselves had perfected, but guided now by Terran precision. It was slaughter. The Empire's pride was torn apart by its own hand. Survivors swore that in the static of their dying calms they heard voices, familiar voices of their own admirals, mocking them from ships now under Terran command. The terror was complete. Soon, no empire dared send ships near Sol. Borders were redrawn overnight, territories abandoned, colonies stripped and evacuated. The void around Earth grew wider and wider, a dead zone where no counselor's hand dared reach. And still, the Ghost Fleet grew. Every fleet that entered was claimed. Every ship that resisted was swallowed. Earth itself remained silent, issuing no demands, declaring no empire. They simply watched as their enemies destroyed themselves. The silence was worse than threats. Centuries later, scholars would still argue whether Earth had built the Ghost Fleet or discovered it. Some claimed humans had always possessed such a bow, weapon hidden deep, and had only waited for the galaxy to test their patience. Others believed the fleets themselves had given birth to the legend, that every empire, by feeding warships into Sol, had unknowingly built the armada that now haunted them. But to those who lived through it, the truth was simpler. The Ninth Fleet never returned, because the Ninth Fleet never left. It had been consumed, absorbed into the great shadow of Earth's fury. And from then on, every empire knew that when Terran warships appeared on the horizon, you could never be sure whose hulls they bore, yours or another's, or some ancient ghost dragged from the grave of war, and so the galaxy changed. Borders shrank. Wars ceased. The council dissolved into fractured silence, not out of peace, not out of mercy, out of terror. Because somewhere in the dark, Earth commanded not just their own ships, but the shadows of every empire that had defied them. No one would ever again speak of sending a fleet against humanity, for they all knew where it would end, in silence, in darkness, and in the Ghost Fleet. The galaxy believed Earth was fragile, small, insignificant. A blue world clinging to life on the edge of the Orion Arm. For decades, the Council of Empires had mocked humanity's stubborn independence, sending threats, demands, and eventually fleets. The first fleets vanished, the second, the third, each one swallowed by Sul's silence. By the time the Eighth Armada was lost, the Council began to wonder if humanity was more dangerous than they pretended. Yet arrogance is older than wisdom. So the Ninth Fleet was forged. It was more than a war fleet. It was a testament of pride, a thunderous answer to the question of Terran defiance. Over 3,000 ships, vast dreadnoughts that eclipsed moons, carriers that disgorged endless. Fighters, cruisers, and destroyers drawn from every corner of the galaxy. An armada designed not simply to defeat Earth, but to erase it. The Council declared its purpose boldly. This is the fleet that will break the back of humanity. But before they set course, Earth spoke. The message echoed across every star. Not in anger, not in fear, cold, measured, final. This is Earth. We have endured your raids, your insults, your hunger for conquest. You have tested us 8 times, and 8 times you have lost. Hear us now. If you cross into Sol again, you will not return. This is not threat. This is not negotiation. This is the last line you are given. Step across it, and you will know what it means to awaken Terran wrath. The Council laughed. A primitive world, giving ultimatums to empires older than their son? The message was dismissed as the final bark of a dying prey, so the Ninth Fleet advanced. At first, Sol seemed empty. The fleet spread wide, scanning for hidden defenses, for the mysterious weapons that had destroyed their predecessors. Earth itself floated in silence, blue and fragile, with no fleet to guard it. The commanders mocked the ultimatum. They have nothing left, they boasted. The humans are spent. Then, the stars shifted. It began in the Kuiper Belt, where cold rocks had floated for eons. They moved. Entire asteroids unfolded into machines the size of cities, their hollow cores revealing cannons that hummed with power. Saturn's rings broke apart, not from gravity, but from hidden constructs rising from beneath the ice, their surfaces glowing with runes of weapons never before seen, and in the shadow of Earth itself, ancient satellites, quiet, forgotten relics, from humanity's earliest steps into orbit, came alive, unfolding into vast angular towers, each one humming with energy that made even dreadnoughts tremble. The Terran war machine had awoken. The Ninth Fleet fired first. Waves of plasma, beams of light, barrages of rail slugs thundered toward the constructs. The void blazed with fury. For a moment, it seemed Sol itself would shatter under the onslaught. But then, Earth answered. The constructs unleashed their wrath. Beams of condensed gravity tore through the void, ripping dreadnoughts apart like paper. Cannons hurled storms of molten metal that shredded carriers. Invisible weapons, silent and unseen, reached into ships and turned their engines cold. It was not battle, it was execution. The Ninth Fleet fought with courage, their weapons shaking the heavens, but they had walked into a trap centuries in the making. Earth had hidden its arsenal well, not out of weakness, but out of patience. They had watched, endured, prepared, until the moment was right. Now Terran wrath had been unchained. Hours passed. The void burned. Entire squadrons vanished in single flashes of light. Admirals screamed orders, demanding retreat, but the stars themselves betrayed them. The constructs had sealed every route of escape, weaving barriers of energy that bent space itself. Trapped, the Ninth Fleet broke into chaos. Some ships fought to the end. Others tried to surrender. Many simply fled in blind panic. None survived. When the last dreadnought fell silent, Sol grew quiet again. The constructs folded back into the dark. Saturn's rings reformed. The asteroids sank back into slumber. Earth floated in silence, as though nothing had happened. But the galaxy had heard. For when the Council demanded answers, when they tried to rally another armada, no empire answered their call. Fear had broken them. None dared cross into Sol again. None dared risk awakening Terran wrath twice. The Council fractured. Allies became rivals. Rivals became cowards. The great unity that had once mocked Earth collapsed into silence. And Earth issued no statement. No victory parade, no declaration of dominance. Humanity simply returned to its work, silent and watchful. That silence was worse than threats. It was a promise, because everyone now understood. Earth had never been bluffing. Earth had been patient, and patience, once broken, became wrath. Centuries later, bards and scholars would argue whether the Terran war machines were new creations or ancient secrets hidden from the galaxy. Some swore humans had unearthed technologies from a forgotten age, relics of powers older than the stars themselves. Others believed humanity's wrath alone had forged weapons no science could explain, but one truth could never be denied. The Ninth Fleet had crossed Sol. The Ninth Fleet had ignored Earth's ultimatum, and the Ninth Fleet never came home. From that day forward, the galaxy lived with a single law burned into memory: do not awaken Terran wrath.